In Voronezh, a wide-body Il-96 aircraft of an unknown modification has been built, and the runway is also being extended for testing new aircraft. Why does Vladimir Putin fly on this particular aircraft, and why is its production shrouded in secrecy? What does the modernization of the testing facility and the hiring of new plant personnel indicate? We'll talk about this, about the impressive achievement of Russian surgeons, and about a new hero after a brief summary of positive news. The third tugboat of the T-3153D project has been launched at the Zelenodolsk shipyard. The assembly of prototypes of the updated Oris Senat sedan has started in Yelabuga. Machine vision technology for locomotives has been successfully tested on the BAM Railway. Production of specialized equipment for oil and gas extraction has been launched in Nizhnevartovsk. In the Omsk region, there is production of gas engine fuel. In Tatarstan, there is production of components for electric submersible pumps. In Mozhaisk, there is one of the most modern sandwich panel production lines in Russia. In Zelenograd, there is a plant for translucent structures and modular facades. In the Sverdlovsk region, there is production of binders and resins. In Udmurtia, there are 2 dairy farms. The United Aircraft Corporation has published materials showing the Il-96 in the final painting workshop. This means that after a pause of several years, production of the country's only wide-body aircraft has resumed, which is certainly pleasing because today, besides us, only Boeing and Airbus in the world can produce such aircraft. However, in our country, it is not used for mass transportation but for special purposes, and here's why. In 1969, the Americans built the world's first wide-body aircraft, the Boeing 747. At that time, the world's population and its prosperity were rapidly growing. People were flying longer and longer distances, and they needed spacious and comfortable airplanes with several aisles between the rows of seats in the cabin. Soon, similar airplanes were produced by Airbus, and the Soviet Union entered the top league of aircraft manufacturing in 1976 when the newest Il-86 made its first flight. Then, based on it, the more modern Il-96-300 was developed. It made a record-breaking flight. It took off from Moscow, flew to Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, and returned to Moscow without landing, covering 14,800 kilometers. Unfortunately, the IL did not go into mass production. The thing is, it was designed under the conditions of the Soviet economy, so it turned out to be reliable but unsuitable for mass transportation. 4 powerful engines, a crew of 3, and numerous backup systems made the ticket price unaffordable for the average passenger. In the USSR, the problem was solved with government subsidies, but in a market economy, airlines simply couldn't afford to operate such aircraft. Only one of them became a regular customer. This is the Special Flight Detachment Rossiya, which is responsible for transporting the president and other officials. It is on the Il-96-300 that Vladimir Putin travels during visits to other countries. Last year, we saw the presidential plane in Alaska. Other high-ranking Russian officials also fly on these planes. For example, our delegation for negotiations on the Ukrainian issue. The high cost per flight hour here is justified by the need for exceptional reliability, and the Il-96 is made entirely of Russian components, including the PS-90A engines. That's why, most likely, the new aircraft built at the Voronezh plant will also be assigned to the Rossiya squadron. However, there is a twist in this story. The thing is, at the end of 2023, flight tests began for the new modification of the Il-96-400M. It features a fuselage extended by more than 9 meters, more powerful PS-90A, and PS-90A-1 engines and can accommodate up to 370 passengers. In addition, it is equipped with the latest navigation system, and the crew has been reduced to 2 people. At the same time, thanks to system redundancy and aerodynamic design, the aircraft is just as reliable and safe as the previous model. No, most likely it won't become widespread either, since it still has 4 engines, which means it's quite fuel-hungry. However, it is most likely being built not for diplomatic visits, but for the most extreme situations. Russia and the US both have their own so-called flying bunkers in case of a major conflict. We have a command aircraft based on the Il-96, which allows the command to stay in the air for a long time and give orders even if the ground infrastructure is destroyed as a result of nuclear strikes. And for civilian leadership, particularly the president, a special version of the Il-96-300 PU has been created. Such an aircraft is also equipped with a lot of special equipment. The extended Il-96-400M is expected to replace it. Thanks to its larger size, it can accommodate modern electronic warfare and communication systems, which means its protection can be significantly increased. And judging by the fact that the production of this modification is shrouded in secrecy, and there has been no news about it since 2023, that's exactly the case. Strictly speaking, we don't even know which exact modification of the Il-96 is currently being completed at the factory. It's quite possible that it's the 400M. But there's another interesting nuance. The production of large and heavy aircraft in Voronezh was held back for a long time by a runway that wasn't long enough. Even the Il-96-300 can only land on it when there's a tailwind. But mass production requires a large number of test flights. It's a paradox, but only bureaucratic issues prevented the runway from being extended, since it required permission to demolish several buildings. However, this week it became known that the problems have been resolved and the runway will be extended soon. In addition, at the end of 2025, the company announced plans to quickly hire up to 2,000 workers due to the expansion of its production program. Of course, they don't just build Il-96s here, but also assemble components for the MC-21 and Il-114-300. But still, the combination of facts gives reason to hope that the production of long-haul wide-body aircraft here will soon increase. And that means there's a chance that modifications for regular transportation will also appear. Last year, it was reported that a project was being considered to replace the 4 PS-90A engines with 2 new, more powerful D-24 engines, which are currently being developed. In any case, there are still many interesting areas of priority reliability ahead of us, and adaptation to freedom is underway. This update is related to Russia's future production program update. In the repair program, the enterprise addresses these daily issues. At the Sklifosovsky Emergency Research Institute, the first operation in Russia to transplant 2 donor hands was performed. The patient lost them due to an injury. The complex operation, during which surgeons connected arteries, veins, nerve endings, and tendons to the hand, lasted 12 hours. Now, a long rehabilitation lies ahead, but sensitivity is already returning. Last year, another patient underwent a similar transplant. 5 months later, he can perform complex actions like doing push-ups, opening doors, and even writing with a pen. And his handwriting hasn't changed. All over the world, such operations are considered among the most complex. Now, the Institute plans to open a center for upper limb transplantation. That means even more people will be able to return to a normal life. And next, an announcement and a rescue story. By the end of the second week of the war against Iran, it became clear even to children that victory doesn't belong to those with more dollars, but to those who can mobilize their industry to produce missiles and other weapons in a war of attrition. And today, there is no more productive economy in the world than the Chinese one. And Chinese leaders are drawing very valuable conclusions about the future world order and the true strength of their rivals. Russia is also among the leaders. For more than 4 years, it has been self-sufficient and far surpasses both European and American industry in its ability to adapt to a prolonged conflict. But how can we become even stronger? 3 weeks ago, we launched a special series to study the Chinese military-industrial complex. And now we've reached the final episode, where we thoroughly analyzed its strengths and what we can adopt for our own benefit. The video is available on my personal channel at sponsor.ru. Awesome. Next, about the hero. The 42-year-old resident of Voronezh, Rinat Tagirov, noticed that there was smoke coming from the car parking lot. Running up, he saw a car on fire. The bystanders around were filming what was happening on their smartphones, but were afraid to get closer. Rinat was the only one among all the bystanders who decided to check if there were people inside the car. Opening the passenger door, he saw only black smoke, but then, looking at the driver's seat, he found an unconscious person there, showing signs of an epileptic seizure. He pulled him out and moved him to a safe distance, as the tires had already started to explode. Soon, rescuers arrived and put out the fire. After handing the injured person over to the medics, Rinat went home and, out of modesty, didn't even tell his loved ones about what had happened. His family found out about his actions later by chance through social media. The hero works as a foreman at a factory and doesn't think he did anything remarkable. Thank you for your heroic deed, and we wish you success.
You overcame your fear and doubts, which means it's your turn now. It's Russia's time. Time for achievements. Time to move forward. This is the time. Our time. We've been waiting for it for a long time. Our time.
It's come. Think, act, push forward.
It's come. Time. You have overcome your fear and doubts,